Hi, my name's Mark, one of the pastors here at Trillium. We've been talking about the challenge of change. There's the outer change, but then there's also the inner change, or what one might call the transition that follows the outer change, the emotional coming to terms with the outer change. So you have change, then you have transition, and from transition you get endings. That's the first thing that happens in the transition, in that emotional response to change. We have to say goodbye to something. We have to learn how to let something go first before we can move forward. And I think that's what makes change and transition so difficult. Because most of us aren't so good at letting go or saying goodbye to people, to favorite objects, your favorite shirt, dress, communities that we like or love, even familiar habits, patterns of life, routines, we might say. Those are all hard to say goodbye to. And yet sometimes they're very necessary to say goodbye to in order to move forward. Now, the Bible identifies the transition, that in between the old and the new. It calls it the desert or the wilderness. And one of the sad parts for me as a pastor is that people often feel they've done something wrong when they're in the wilderness, when they're transitioning from the old to the new. So for instance, someone loses a beloved spouse and they're in this in-between time between their old identity as a married couple and their new identity as a single person. And they're struggling in that place. And somehow they feel they've done something wrong, or there's something wrong inside of them, or they're not strong enough or good enough to be able to get over the gap, in a sense, between the two realities. Or perhaps they feel God, I've heard people say God is punishing them, or God has abandoned them, or God is ignoring their plight in the desert. And when I hear those words, the response in me is, oh, no, you misunderstand. You misunderstand. The desert, the wilderness that we find ourselves in, that gap between old and new, is not a form of punishment. It's not God punishing us. It's not life punishing us. It's not being abandoned there. It is a necessary step in going from the old to the new in our lives. We can't just simply leap over from one to the other. We need to transition or journey through the desert or the wilderness to the new place, the promised land, whatever that might be. And that's a hard journey to make. And sometimes we refuse to make it. I remember as a kid coming home from school, I was like 8 years old, and I came up to the garbage can that was in front of our house. It was still out on the street, full of garbage, which was very unusual. The garbage, man hadn't come by yet, obviously. And as I'm going by the garbage can, I look into it, and I see this little ear sticking out. And I look in and I realize it's my beloved teddy bear. It's actually my younger brother's and I's beloved teddy bear that we've had since we were young kids. Been with us our whole life. And I call my brothers over and we're looking in amazement, in stunned amazement, and in indignation too, that our beloved teddy bear is in the garbage. And we hatch a plan. We pull him out, we rescue him from the garbage. And my brothers make a commotion at the front door to draw my mom's attention. And I go around the back door and down into the basement, into the crawl space, and put him at the far back end of the wall. He's rescued. You see, this is one ending we're not prepared to be a part of. This is one transition at the moment we're not willing to go through. But my mom, her motives were good. The teddy bear was worn out. He was probably at end of life stage. He'd worn through in his skin. The fabric's been worn out in many places. He'd been played with and loved for many years, but his time was over. He even lost one of his eyes. And yet she thought she was doing us a big favor by not teaching us how to let go, how to say goodbye. She wanted to stop us or help us avoid the desert or the wilderness, that transition from having Teddy to a new world where we didn't have Teddy. And in the end, I think she didn't allow us the opportunity to learn and grow from it. You're going to find yourself, I'm going to find myself in the desert all the time in the midst of the change. There's change all around us. We go through transitions. We have to learn how to say goodbye in the midst of the endings. That's not a bad place for us. I don't think it is. It's where new life is found. The promise of the scriptures is that even in the desert, there is life. There is beauty. It is a good place.